But let's move on to the second marquee game of the day between Iowa and Iowa State. The battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Look, I originally played Iowa State in this game +3. I just simple handicap. I made it less, and I said low total, super low total here. I want the field goal in hand. But I ended up coming back some on Iowa after I went back, watched the Iowa State game, and also got some injury reports. The Iowa State linebacker room really worries me. You already had one of your starters out, and then you lost Bacon, who was one of their most important players on defense. And just the drop off to their replacements, it was bad last week, and it could be bad again this week. So I bought some back on Iowa money line. There's also a good chance this game ends by Iowa by 1 or 2 in a typical Iowa State game. The other things that do worry me about Iowa State are, this game usually, low scoring game. A lot of times it's going to come down to just like a special teams play. Who's going to turn the ball over? Penalties. Those are the battles that Iowa usually wins. And you have to mention that this Iowa team showed a little bit more of a pulse last week on offense. I think they had the most total yards since 2019. That true freshman wide receiver, Vanderzee, he showed out with 2 touchdowns. Their wide receivers had 3 touchdowns, the same amount of touchdowns they had all of last season. So you saw them spread it out a little more, use a little more modern concepts, and it's a little more vertical offense. I feel like you talking about San Diego State calling the Iowa offense vertical. So if you look back at this, and then but I should finish the other thing that worries me about Iowa State is their offense last year worked best when it hit explosive plays. Very explosive offense. Well, under Phil Parker, no defense has done a better job at limiting explosive plays than Iowa has in recent seasons. So I don't feel as good about Iowa State with some of the injury situations. I don't know if they're going to be able to efficiently move the ball. And maybe this Iowa offense has a little more juice. I will say I'll make a case for, I already made a case. I'm going to make a case later in the show for an ugly over. This one I would lean over under 37. The under in this matchup is 17-2 over the past 19 meetings, but 10 of those 19 have reached at least 37 points. And this looks like a much more competent Iowa offense. There's injuries on the Iowa State defense. So I think that there could be more points than many are expected. And it's not that high of a bar to clear at under 37. 20-17 gets it done. What do you see here?
I'm going to download every word you just said and apply it to Army Navy when the total's like 28, because it's too low. Sometimes it just gets too low and you got to go over. So listen, I'm not surprised by what Iowa State did last week against North Dakota. I mean, it's just in their DNA to suck in the first game of the season. They won by 6 as a 32.5 point favorite over Northern Illinois in 2021. They lost outright to Louisiana in 2020 in the opener. They beat Northern Iowa by 3 in 2019 as a 23-point favorite. I really don't take anything away from it, but the injuries are a concern. You're right about that. Freshman Cale Brzezinha is going to start at linebacker as a freshman. He was injured last week, but he comes back in the rotation, a linebacker crew that's already missing 2 guys. So if there's going to be a point of attack for Iowa's new offense, it's going to be at that linebacker area. So, I'm not sold on Iowa like everybody else is. I know the final score says 40-0. It was 6-0 at half. Then they come back out. They're busting some highlight touchdowns. They're running through the A gap and, a 60-yard TD to the house. I mean, that's just Illinois State being tired in the second half. That I'm not really sure that has to do with Tim Lester's offense hitting the A gap and going 60 yards. Cade McNamara throwing for 3 TDs is a very positive sign for the Hawkeyes. To me, this play is all about who takes care of the ball better. So instead of breaking down offense and defense in this matchup, you're actually breaking down special teams here. Now, Rocco Becht has only thrown 3 interceptions in his last 9 games. He has been fantastic with the ball. He's only fumbled twice on 61 carries last year. The explosive element does reside with Iowa State, but you're right. Phil Parker is going to throw a little bit of a kink into that. Eli Green, Jaden Higgins were well over 2 yards per route run in the game against North Dakota. Jalen Noel went berserk. I mean, he's 8 targets. LA targets he caught for 135 yards and a TD. The Iowa defensive backs, they're going to have to be on their game in one-on-one tackling. I don't really know if that's where Iowa State's going to go. I think it's really Abu Sama. I mean, he only fumbled the ball twice last year. And when you hear me bring up fumbles and interception rates, I want to know who's more probable to having the screw up that's going to cost the game. I think of Brock Purdy fumbling the ball down in Iowa's red zone. That was the game. You go into the special teams here. Jalen Noel, he returns punts, kicks. That's a big plus for Iowa State. Iowa State's punter, Tyler Perkins, he averaged 44 yards last season, so it's not like we have an inexperienced punter. They do have a red shirt freshman kicker, Kyle Cornradi. He was 3 for 3 on extra points, but no field goal attempts. Unsurprisingly, Iowa gained 195 hidden yards last week on Illinois State. They connected on 2 field goals. They connected on all 4 extra points. Only 1 punt on
Good
the
returns.
day. Good returns. So really, if you're backing Iowa State, you think it's a pick'em game, because I think it's a pick'em game. You're backing Iowa State because you want the points, you want the field goal, and you're trusting Rocco Beck to not have mistakes here because he made a lot against the Hawkeyes last year. It was just deer in the headlights, but then again, second game for a true freshman. I trust him more than I do Cade McNamara to create chunk plays, bigger chunk plays. I just can't get over Iowa only not even scoring a TD on Illinois State through the first half. So, I'm backing Iowa State here at 3. Pretty confident with it, but I think the game's going to land 1, 2, 3. So like the number.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning Caleb Johnson was suspended in the first half. He did come out in the second half, look great. And, you mentioned Illinois State might have been wearing down. He was fresh and ready to go, motivated after that suspension. And maybe Carrick Ferentz back on the sidelines. Maybe he says, no. We're back to no passing. We're going completely conservative.